Okay, now you're live.
Okay, thank you. Again, everyone, thank you for visiting the Community Planning Information Meeting tonight, hosted by the Planning and Zoning Department of the City of Stonecrest. We'll go ahead and get started, and I'm in the process of sharing my screen with you. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to get feedback from the community in an informal setting on upcoming Planning Commission cases. The next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 7th. That meeting begins at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers. The applicants, in this case, it will be two applicants tonight, will explain the proposed project and answer any questions from the community. Staff can answer technical questions that the applicant is not able to answer. Applications are not voted on at this meeting. At this meeting, we are introducing the application to you that will be coming before the Planning Commission meeting. You have the right to ask staff or the applicant of any questions that you may have. Feedback is used to inform both the applicant and decision makers of community interests and concerns regarding each case. If you're not familiar with the land use application process, here staff is presenting to you the flowchart in which the applications are flowed through the system. It first starts with a pre-application meeting. The applicant holds a pre-application meeting with city staff to discuss their project. Once the department has decided that the application can now move forward, the application is filed by the applicant to the Planning and Zoning Department. From there, the staff begins to prepare the application for hearing. And in that, we send letters out to surrounding property owners within 1,000 feet of the property. We also advertise the case in the newspaper, and we begin to do our due diligence, such as staff reports, site visits, etc. Here, at this point where we are tonight, a community planning information meeting is held in which the applicant gets to explain their project. There is no voting or approval or denial at this meeting. You're just listening to the applicant and providing any comments or questions, and also getting feedback from the applicant. From there, the application travels to the Planning Commission meeting. At the Planning Commission meeting, the commissioners may ask of any questions they may have of the applicant as well as staff. The Planning Commission meeting votes, and that votes includes a recommendation of approval or denial. The application then travels to the City Council, where a formal and final decision is made. And here, these are the descriptions of what happened at the City Council meeting. Pretty much the same format. They hear the case, they may ask questions of the applicant as well as staff, and they then render a decision of approval, denial, or they can table it and send it back to Planning Commission meeting. So the three cases before you tonight is one, the SLUP 22-12. If you were here in the month of December 13th to be exact, we heard this case. This case went before Planning Commission on January 3rd. That board recommended that the applicant return to the community planning information meeting based on some of the comments that were made at that meeting. So tonight we will hear 7173 Covington Highway, and what they're seeking is a special land use permit for a late night establishment. The next two cases, the city is the applicant here. The applicant, to be more specific, is the Planning and Zoning Department. And what we're doing is introducing TMOD 22-014. This is to formalize the CPIM as part of the zoning process. which is the process we're in tonight. We want to formalize that to require applicants to come to this meeting prior to going before the Planning Commission meeting. And last is TMOD 22-015. This is the sign ordinance. Staff is just making some amendments to that ordinance and introducing new definitions. So these are the three cases that are before you tonight. And I am just going to do another roll call to see if the applicant of SLUP 22-0112 is present. So the first case before us tonight is 7173 Covington Highway. If the applicant is here and you're speaking, just check to see if you're on mute. And if you are, just unmute yourself to let us know that you are present so that we can begin. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and introduce the case and hopefully the applicant will join us. So again, we're introducing the SLUP 22-012 at 7173 Covington Road. This is Covington Highway. So the property is currently zoned light industrial. The acreage is approximately 1.6 acres. The owner of the property is George Grell. The applicant is seeking a special land use permit to operate as a late night establishment. Before you is a zoning map with the star here showing the location of the property. So the property sits between Lithonia West Drive and Lithonia Industrial Boulevard, fronting Covington Highway. This is a bird's eye view of the property. So the applicant's business is located within this within this building. And as you can see, there's ingress, egress from Covington Highway, which you travel down the shared driveway, and you may exit here. Traveling further down this driveway, you're entering another business, but these three buildings all share this driveway. The next image is just giving you a view of the property, an external view, how it looks. So you have older built buildings here, mainly warehouse use, but to my understanding, not much industrial activity is taking place here. There's nail salons, hair salons. I think there's a restaurant and other businesses located here. Again, another location. So you can see the hair salon here. There's a banquet hall here. And some other businesses. So they're all divided by suites. And the case in point tonight will be Suite D, as in donut. So Ms. Robinson, if you're here, you're able to defend your case. If not, we'll just continue to talk. So for those of you that were not in attendance at the January 3rd Planning Commission meeting, there was some discussion between the board and the applicant. And because of some of those discussions as to the comments made by the surrounding neighbors, they made comments that they were concerned with the noise, with crime, and that they would like, if the board were to approve this application, that they wanted a stop time for this type of business. They did not want it to continue to 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And the applicant, of course, defended the petition and stated that they normally do not stay open that late, that that they are an event center, and indeed they do have a business license to be an event center, but they're not operating within the scope of an event center. And that there were other comments made that staff forced them to apply for a late night establishment. And of course, just on behalf of the staff, we never force anyone to do anything that they're not comfortable in doing. And the board then rendered a decision that the applicant return to staff to, one, work out any issues that they feel that staff has imposed on them, and two, to speak with the community on having a harmonious relationship between them and the community. And so we definitely want to give the applicant, the opportunity to do that. And unfortunately, it does not appear that the applicant is here. I will say this, this will go on the January 23rd City Council meeting. Staff has made a recommendation to the City Council to do a full deferral back to the Planning Commission meeting. However, City Council does not have to accept staff's recommendation. They can definitely hear the case if they want to, or they can deny it. But know that right now we will wait on City Council's recommendation. If they want to hear the case, if they want to defer it back, then we will then move forward with the necessary steps. But as of right now, we have not advertised the case because we are just wanting to understand what City Council wants to do with the case. So for now, I'll just go ahead and open the floor to any questions. And if you will raise your hand so I'll know. Okay, Mr. Knight, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Good evening. It's glad to see you. And I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak with you publicly on behalf of the Stonecrest Industrial Council. And also, I've been asked to make a few comments on behalf of a business and a gentleman who are not, strictly speaking, my clients, but they could not be here tonight, Mr. Christopher Alexander, who is a partner in American Structural Concrete, which is the business that is adjacent to and on the west side of Lithonia Industrial Boulevard. He's adjacent to the QT. And if he goes out to his public street frontage, he can look down the road and he can actually see this building where this business is located. And he is opposed. He is a neighbor, a business neighbor, and he is opposed. And the reasons are, there are several reasons. Number one, and I think I've mentioned this before, it is anomalous and is illogical for any sort of nightclub or late night establishment to be allowed in the industrial area. It's an encroachment, pure and simple, of a business, a type of business, a use, which, I'm very sorry that I hadn't started my video, of a type of use which is simply not compatible with industrial uses for any number of reasons. A big one is that you're going to have folks there late at night with lots of traffic, people who have been drinking, and we have a problem in the industrial areas with vandalism, with illegal dumping, and other things too, with crime. And this just, in our opinion, encourages it. I think another difficulty here is the fact that this is part of the Covington Highway, Lithonia Industrial Boulevard intersection, which is a dangerous intersection. It is a choke point for traffic now, which was exacerbated and made even more dangerous by the city's decision to allow the QT to be located at that corner, and worse than that, to allow the QP to have direct access onto Lithonia Industrial Boulevard with its own private street. Traffic there is horrendous. Now, it is scheduled for a redesign as part of the master transportation plan, but that's in the future. And we do intend, as part of the freight cluster plan study, which is upcoming, we don't know when, to focus on this intersection. But in the meantime, it simply is not logical and it's not safe to allow a lot of extra traffic late at night for a late night establishment. I would say too that this particular location has several businesses, not just within the building per se, that this business is located. There was a fire, I believe it was of a small warehouse. And I think you can see just off to the left of the right-hand photograph, you can see a building that has a white color. I believe that is a brand new replacement building, which has been built on the concrete pad where the old building was that burned down. And I believe that's for an industrial use. So this area is being used industrially. We don't want to see more encroachments here. We think it's an unsafe situation. There's no need for it to be here. And it would add to the traffic problem at a very dangerous intersection. And for those reasons, in addition to the fact that Mr. Christopher Alexander, the partner in American Structural Concrete, who is a neighbor across the street, opposes it, we would respectfully submit that this SLUP application should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cofield?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I have very serious concerns about this spot zoning of things and placing things in places where they're not compatible with what is already there. And also where there is no indication that there will be a change, that there will be other businesses that will be, like it's going through a change. There is plenty of space in this area where this club could relocate. It's plenty of spaces at the mall where they could be, but to put them in this location is not a good idea. And I will agree with Mr. Knight that there is an issue of crime. There is an issue of crime within the location, because I understand from the meeting that there are cars that are loud and racing up and down the street. But also these businesses are not occupied. And I'm not to say that people from the club will do something to these businesses, but it presents an opportunity for people to come into the area that may never even step foot in the club and mingle in and go into these locations. So we have to be very careful. Plus, there is supposed to be an effort to revitalize Covington Highway. And this just does not fit in. She said at one point, I thought she said it was a special private thing that would be rented, so, I mean, there are other places where it can be located without trying to get a special, use or anything there. And I'm just opposed to it. And I don't know why she didn't show up tonight, because she was made aware.
Right. So she's here now. She joined the meeting at 6:19. So Ms. Robinson, do you have any response to those comments? You're on mute if you're speaking.
I'm sorry, I'm helping her to unmute right now.
Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I hope everyone is well. My apologies for the lateness. I was not sent a link, so I had to go through a different way to actually join the meeting. I'm not sure what I'm failing to understand as far as the space. Ms. Keidra Jackson, you just mentioned the surrounding businesses in that area, and you said banquet hall. The banquet hall sign that you see is the actual place where we are. It is not a new location. It's the same banquet hall that you mentioned prior. That's the space that we've rented since last year. There's no new space. So
That
I'm
comment
not,
was not made for me that it was a new space.
yeah, I was just trying to help whoever's on the Zoom to understand that it's not a club that's being built or anything other. It's the banquet hall that was mentioned before.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get some understanding out there. We rented it last year and we've been using it since that time until today. And it's very surprising to me that there has been no complaints against the banquet hall that has been there for the past 15 years. So I'm not sure what new errors have occurred.
I think we're here to address the comments and from
Yeah.
the meeting.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing tonight. So the comments at the meeting were
Yeah.
regarding the noise, the traffic, the crime. So the board members sent you back to CPIM to see what new options or what new avenues that you can suggest or that you can commit to in order to move forward as a late night establishment.
Okay, thank you. What we would and have been doing is any events that have taken place over the time, as mentioned before in the meeting, we have police and we have security at all times. If any other recommendations could be said for the safety of the establishment, we're willing to work with Stonecrest to move forward also. According to the actual owner, Mr. George, he told me he had never had any citations or anything with the banquet hall until now. He also used to have security and police anytime they had an event there. So we just continued with the same conditions that he priorly had. So we're willing to work with Stonecrest, whatever is offered to us at this time.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add to that, Ms. Robinson?
We did do a noise test. I also asked Mr. George if he's ever been in a noise coordinates, and he said he's never had that complaint before with any noise. We actually had an officer go over to the subdivision. We did a noise test. We knocked on a neighbor's door. He's actually the first home in that subdivision, and he said he hears nothing in the evening time, in the nighttime. So
I'm curious, how were
I'm
you
not
able to
sure.
do a noise test?
We drove over to where the subdivision is, and how the building is set, Miss Jackson. The banquet hall is to the back of the building near a truck yard. So the noise, it's in a concrete building and the doors are closed. So I'm not sure how the neighbors would hear any activities to how the building is faced as to where the homes are across the street. I'm not sure.
Okay, so again,
How-
if you can answer, how were you able to do a noise test?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please. I'm sorry.
How were you able to do a noise test?
We turn the music up. We turn the music up to if there's an event, we turn the music up to the level where it usually would be if there's a function. And there was no noise. There was
So are
nothing
you
to be heard
still,
across the street.
okay,
Because I was quite, concerned that if there was noise, that we would be able to hear it as well with doing that demonstration, and we heard nothing.
Okay, so did you have an event that night to do the noise
Mm.
test?
We did the noise test, no event. We've been banned from events. So no, ma'am, no events. But we did the noise test to see if that was an issue.
Okay. And Ms. Cofield has her hand up.
Okay.
I always say the easiest way to resolve this is that I understand that there might have been some calls to 911. And those 911 logs are maintained indefinitely. I worked 911 and I worked regular patrol, so I'm very familiar with the policies. Also, I'm having trouble understanding, this is supposed to be a late night establishment that's going to be open until I think 2 o'clock in the morning. And I don't understand how you can, because at 2 o'clock in the morning, noise will travel a little bit further because there's nothing to buffer it. It's less to buffer it. So I'm just wondering how she got somebody to open their door and hold a conversation with her in the wee hours of the morning.
Ma'am, I did not say anything about wee hours of the morning. I did not say that.
When did you do your noise test? At around what time?
This was about last week, and it was about 9:30 p.m.
Still,
I did not say anything about wee hours of the morning. No, ma'am.
I'm still trying to understand how strange, how nothing. I'll let that one go.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Miss Chef Tony would like to speak also.
Sure.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, prior to what my wife was just saying, the noise testing that we did was basically I drove over to the front of the subdivision and I had someone with a cell phone turning up and turning down the music, open the back door, closing the back door. And at that time, the neighbor was, walking his dog. And I said to him, sir, have you ever hear any music coming out here? He said, no. So I was standing there myself and I couldn't hear anything. So my question is there someone in Stonecrest could come out and investigate the matter properly? Because we're there. We never have police come in to tell us turn the music down or turn it off. So it's a bit nerve-wracking to hear that there's 911 call and there's other business there, which the restaurant up front goes until 2, 3 in the morning, and he had no problem, no noise, no nothing troubling him. So I'm just asking if there's someone from inside the office could come out and do an investigation on it. Because apparently the people in the subdivision is not getting it straight, because the last time we were in the meeting, yet they had complained that the restaurant, my restaurant was, doing all this in the COVID time. And my restaurant is all the way down Panola Street and Park Central Boulevard. So I just don't get it why, Chef Tony's boat business in Stonecrest is getting that beaten right now. We just
But
need someone to investigate the matter properly from inside the office.
okay, are we talking about Covington Highway or another location?
We have 2 locations on Covington Highway. We have the restaurant by Park Central Boulevard and Covington Highway, and we have the event space by the banquet hall by Lightona Industrial and Covington Highway. But the people were complaining at the meeting that my restaurant was doing noise, troubling them since the COVID time. And
I don't think anyone said it was your restaurant. I think what they were just saying that it's the noise. And I believe one of the ladies said it could be the other restaurant.
but Miss Kija,
Mhm.
yes, that was it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to try to lie on anyone, but Eat Right restaurant is right there, and you cannot hear no music coming from there. That's why I'm asking if someone could please come out and do a thorough investigation on it.
So let me ask you this, in order to, if you want to continue to work as or operate as a late night establishment, are you willing to close earlier?
Listen, Miss Jackson, this is not a club that stays open every night. It's if we get a date, if we're booked for someone to do their party. That's all we're asking. It's not a club where it runs from Monday to Monday.
Okay, but did you hear my question?
Yes,
If you're
but
operating Friday through Sunday, I'm not sure what your days
Mhm.
are. If you're operating Friday through Sunday, and from what I understand, there were complaints that the noise is going on to 4 in the morning. One lady said 5. But
No,
if are you to have a harmonious relationship with the adjacent subdivision, are you willing to stop operation? Maybe you're at 2.
I will go to, but even when you give me two, when they all agree to two, I would still love if someone could just come out from the office and do a prior investigation so it covers them. So later on, they don't complain that this, that. It's just a proper investigation on the building in the surrounding of where that subdivision is. Because remember, the first meeting, someone was saying that the clients from the parties drove in their subdivision and making tire marks and all of this and shots and that. And there's nothing. I've never had police come over there for that. So we just love a straight investigation on the building itself with the music so that everybody could be comfortable.
We understand that, and to my understanding, and unfortunately they're not here to defend themselves, but to my understanding, code enforcement has come out and it was confirmed that there is noise.
It
Um,
wasn't the noise, Miss Jackson, it was the alcohol.
okay, but
Yeah.
let's just say this, in to move forward, what
Mhm.
are you willing to do to have a comfortable and harmonious relationship with those that are adjacent to your
I would,
establishment?
what I would do is try to do a dinner, invite them over, set some tables and chairs up, and have a nice meeting with them. Everybody sit, eat. They just, just to be concerned that everyone is okay. I mean, if they say 2 o'clock or the office say 2 o'clock, there ain't nothing we can do. We have to just apply by what you guys said.
Okay. So nothing basically will be done differently other than the hours. I'm just trying to, because the board asked you to meet with staff. And to be honest, we have not had a meeting yet. No one has
Mhm.
reached out to us to have a meeting. So I'm
But I
just,
thought, sorry, I thought it was to be with the residents also.
right, and that's what we're doing. And he
Right,
also ordered you to meet with staff.
right.
So I'm
It's
just,
it's your timing. We don't know. We don't have the address or phone numbers on these residents. We have to wait on the office to get it together, so we'll know what to do from there.
no, that's not what he asked you to do. He asked you to
Okay.
meet with staff and meet with the residents. So we're at the CPIM meeting.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the same ladies did not show up. But what I'm saying is that what are you willing to do differently than what you're already doing?
We at this point we are not doing anything because remember the office of course told us we cannot operate, so we don't do anything. Moving forward, Whatever the office tell us to do, we're just willing to do it. Nothing over that, just what the office say.
Okay. Ms. Cofield, you have another question? Ms. Cofield, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Okay, I think one of the things that's missing here is that the concerns of the residents wasn't just about the noise coming from the business, but that the noise was spilling and the traffic was spilling over into their subdivision. That's what one of their concerns was.
Would you like to address that?
Yes, ma'am.
You missed it.
I just don't fully understand that complaint about the traffic. The parking lot is way big enough to hold over 200-300 vehicles. Never had that before. And the subdivision is on the main street. There's no way any vehicle could have parked over by that subdivision. That's just, a bit nerve-wracking right there to me, because Covington Highway stay busy throughout 24 hours. The Quick Trip gas station right there. So no vehicle from the event, from the banquet hall would able to park on Covington Highway or go into that sub right there, because the parking lot is way too big for that. And remember, the parking lot divides decap a part of the road. So at hours and nights, it's really dead. So they just use the parking out there.
I'm sorry. So you're saying
There's no traffic.
after certain hours, your patrons use what parking?
The parking within just 71, 73 all the way. It's a way big enough parking lot you have a entrance from Covington Highway into the banquet hall area, goes all the way back to Lightona Industrial on the back stretch.
Right.
That's why the whole entire place is empty at night. So that's where they park their vehicle and walk over.
And you have a parking agreement with the
Yes.
owners?
Yes.
You do?
And then what happened if they mess it up? We have to clean it before morning.
Okay. Can you supply staff with that parking agreement?
Will do.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments by the public? If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move to the next case. Okay. The next case is TMOD-22-014. It is the City of Stonecrest Community Planning Information Meeting. So tonight is the Community Planning Information Meeting. And what staff is seeking to do is make this process a more formalized process in our zoning flow. So as I showed you earlier, I presented to you a flow chart that the meeting, to get to this meeting, it starts with a pre-application meeting. And then from there, it moves through the process. And the first stop before it gets to the planning commission meeting will be the community planning information meeting. So as of now, in section 7.2.4, which is located in Article 7, it reads this. So everything is in red is what we're taking out. So letter C says zoning, if you're not speaking, if you don't mind muting, please. Thank you. Zoning decisions appeals to the zoning board of appeals, variances, extensions, and let me just close this here. Extensions of special land use permits and major modifications of conditions initiated by a party other than the city for any zoning decision appeal to the zoning board of appeals, variance, extension of special land use permits, or major modification of conditions initiated by a party other than the city, notice of the public hearing shall be provided as follows. So I highlighted this portion. Written notice of each public hearing shall state the nature of the proposed change and the date, time, and place of the public hearing before either the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, etc. So I want to stop it here. We want to insert before, where it says before either the Planning Commission, we want to say before the Community Planning Information Meeting, then the Planning Commission, and then we're taking the Zoning Board of Appeals out, and then the City Council. So I'm going to go to the proposed language so it can be better understood. So everything is in red is what we're proposing. So we're going to take out before, we're striking through that language, and we're adding prior to the Planning Commission public hearing, the rezoning, text amendment, comprehensive land use change, and or special land use application shall be presented for public comment at a community zoning information meeting, which is better known as CPIM. And then it'll go into either the CPIM, Planning Commission, and we're striking out Zoning Board of Appeals only because that meeting does not require a community meeting. So we're striking that out, and it will continue as it is currently written, or the City Council, and it will go in for there. So this is the language we're adding in. I'm going to clean that up a little bit before we go to before we go to Planning Commission. So that is all we're doing with that. So we're just making this more of a formalized step in the zoning process to assure that the community has notification as well as a voice to state their concerns of a upcoming zoning matter. So I'm going to now turn the mic over to the public, and Mr. Knight has his hand up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And I do agree with everything that you're doing here. I think that I have long been an advocate of some sort of form of the community council system that has long been the process in unincorporated DeKalb County. From the very beginning, I felt it was unfortunate that when the Stonecrest zoning code was adopted with modifications from the DeKalb zoning code in 2017, that they omitted the community council process. I think this is an extremely important step. I applaud the fact that you and Director Somerville before the Director Wright and now Dr. Wright are pursuing this and moving forward with it. Thank you very much. I do have one suggestion for an addition to this language, which I think would help everybody and would also better inform the discussion, the level of discussion, certainly the knowledge of the public and the residents and businesses before even the CPIM meeting, certainly Planning Commission and the City Council and the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is that, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 days prior to the CPIM meeting, a copy of the application in question, whether it's for a zoning, or whether it's comp plan change, or whether it's for a SLUP, a copy of the actual application should be posted online at the city website. I don't think that's a very difficult thing to do administratively. I think it would be very, very helpful, because a lot of times we have to wait for the staff analysis, and we understand that it has to be generated. But in addition, I think that it's really, at times, there are things that simply are not covered in the staff analysis, which are present there in the application. It will give everybody a head start. I don't think there's any reason whatsoever not to post it. It's certainly material that would be otherwise subject to an Open Records Act request, but I would respectfully submit that that should not be a burden of the residents or the businesses in Stonecrest to have to file an Open Records Act request. This is something that I would candidly say should be available to everybody early on. And in fact, it is available in unincorporated DeKalb County at the county website. So I would ask you to very please consider something to the effect that there be, say 10 to 15 days before the CPIM meeting, written into this ordinance that you have on the screen right now, a copy of the actual application that will be the subject of the meeting on the agenda will be made available to the public simply by posting on the city website.
Okay. So Mr. Knight, you're very familiar with the Planning and Zoning Department, mostly when Mr. Somerville was here. So what I'm doing is just pretty much carrying on the historical operations, which include that normally the staff analysis is released a week before the meeting. Are you okay with us posting that information a week before? Because that way, we don't want the public to get that information before the board. So normally a week before the meeting, we're meeting with the board, we are abreasting them on the applications that are coming before them. And we're also sending those analyses to the city manager as well as the clerk's office. So I'm asking you, would 7 days prior to the meeting be sufficient for you?
Well, I think it would be helpful to make the staff analysis available to everybody as soon as possible. But again, I would respectfully submit, and I hope this isn't taken the wrong way, that it should be an opportunity available for everyone out here, the public, and including the businesses and residents, to also, for their own purposes and to form their own opinions, evaluate the actual application itself and compare that with the staff analysis and form their own opinions. I do think it'd be extremely useful in a lot of ways. And I don't think it'd be really much of a burden to you all at all. You simply ask your administrative assistant to post it online, and it's there, and we can all see it. And I can't think of a single reason why it should be withheld. And I'm not withholding it. I think that really it's something that I've always considered to be something that should be posted as a matter of course in these zoning matters, and the Board of Zoning Appeals in addition.
Okay. Right, thank you. Your comment is accepted. Thank you.
Very much, ma'am.
So I can't see if anyone else has their hand up for some reason. I don't see the participants anymore.
There are no other hands up.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we move to the next case? So I thank everyone. And Mr. Knight, I will take your comments under consideration. Also speaking with city manager as well as our attorneys just to get their opinion on your suggestion.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome. So the next case before you that will be on the February 7th Planning Commission agenda will be TMOD -22-015, and this is pertaining to the sign ordinance. So since I started working at the city of Stonecrest, I've had several customers come to us to voice their perception of our ordinance, comments that is confusing. Myself has found it confusing, and sometimes it contradicts another section in the code. So our goal is to make some amendments to that ordinance, starting with section 21 and 21.1 and 21.2. In those sections, what we're doing is just striking through some language. So before we begin, just know that everything in red is being changed. If you see a strike through, that means we're taking it out the ordinance. But everything in red is what we're adding into the ordinance. So we're going to start with section 21.1. We're creating the purpose of this ordinance, so of the sign ordinance to be exact. So it says to prohibit all signs not expressly authorized by this chapter, to provide for the maintenance of signs, and to provide for the enforcement of the provisions of this chapter. So that's the purpose of the sign ordinance. And then here, as we move to section 21.2, which pertains to the definitions, as you can see, we're adding new definitions. And if your eyes are like mine, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. So the first definition would be parapet wall sign, shopping center. We're striking this entire definition out. Sign will be another definition we're intending to add. Sign face, subdivision entrance sign, temporary sign. Here, section 21-23 and 2128-28, we're just making some changes here. So previously, it just said community development director. Well, we do not have a community development director. So this portion of the ordinance is dealing with the conforming of signs, and also with the permit regulations. So therefore, this should, the authority here will be given to the chief building official. So this is the only change we're making here. We're taking community development director out and adding chief building official. I should have did a strike through there, but I can make that change before we take this to planning commission. The next section is section 21-28, which is enforcement and penalties. Same thing here. We're giving this to the director of code enforcement. They are the ones that will be enforcing any violations of the sign ordinance. Moving on to section 21-61 and section 21-62. Again, we're giving the cost of the sign permit to the chief building official. I don't know what I did with section 21-62, but I can address that at a later time. Here, we're going to move to section 21-65. Again, everything in red is what we're adding. So this section, what we did was make some changes as far as the formatting here. So before it was like 1, then 2, 3, 4. I'm adding letters, as you can see here. So section here, this is not a section, but here, just letter A, and then under A will be number 2. There's already a 1, but 2, we're adding ground signs are prohibited with the exception of monument signs. That should be a strike through. We're striking through that. So ground signs are essentially the same as a monument sign. That's one of the confusing language I saw in this code. I'm like, wait, aren't they the same? So and other customers that have come to us have said the same thing. We're just wanting to clean that up. And as you can see, as we go along, you will see the cleanup with the monument signs. So again, here, just changing the numbers to letters. And then when we get here, it says single family residential. Just wanted to make that a little bit more clear. We're adding 1 maximum 32 square foot entry wall or monument sign, or 2 single family entry wall or monument signs not to exceed 16 square feet for each side of a platted single family. I'm not going to bore you with all the reading, but we're wanting to put some regulations as in regarding to residential development. So this will pertain to single family, and this language here would pertain to townhome, multifamily. And then there's a section for multifamily residential uses only, and that pertains to MR1, MR2, MR3, and all of the HRs. I think I skipped ahead a little bit. Okay, so section 21-69. Just adding some language here. Previously, it stated that no wall sign greater than 180 square feet shall be permitted. But we're saying, in addition to that, we're saying it shall not be placed below the 12th story of a building confined to the upper 30 feet of the facade. And then here's some language is added under letter E, and we're creating a letter F stating wall signs are subject to the are prohibited against roof signs, walls erected on the roof of a building, regardless of whether such wall projects above its top are not parapet walls, etc. So basically, we're just saying signs cannot go beyond the roof. Section 2170, we're taking language under letter A and D out. And there's already a table, which is table 21-72. We're adding some language here. And because I'm getting older, I have to zoom in a little bit. So under monument sign, we're stating that the max number of signs are 1 per street frontage. For wall signs, we're stating that 1 facade on buildings less than 8 stories is allowed. And under 2, we're saying the facade on buildings 8 stories or more, you can have 2 signs. And let me go back up to the row before this one. For window signs, currently the code reads that you can have 30% of window signs. We're reducing that to 10, and it says that 10% of the window space for buildings under 50% square feet, you can have 10%. And we're going to change that language a little bit. So basically 10% if you're under or over 50,000 square feet. Before it was 30. Section 21-82, we're striking through wayfinding signage and just naming it directional signs. Section 21-83, I'm going to pause here. I see Ms. Cofield has her hand up.
Yes, on the window sign, the size of the things in the window, always been a safety concern of mine, that, so much of the window is taken up that you cannot see inside the business. And it's a safety hazard, not only for citizens, but also for police or whoever are responding or going into that location. I think that really you shouldn't have too much of anything in the front window unless it is very high up. The front window is clear. That's what I was trying to say, unless I missed something that you were saying.
No, I think what you stated is our consent as well. Now, keep in mind, the Stonecrest overlay prohibits window signs. So if the property is in the Stonecrest overlay, they will not be able to have window signs.
Okay, but I'm just saying for businesses, especially these convenience stores and gas stations who have their windows covered, and you walk in, you can't really see what's going on until you actually get inside.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So section 2183 will be a new section in the sign ordinance. And this will be titled temporary signage during construction. So we are allowing construction signs to be erected. So here, number one, in R100 through R5 and RNC zoning districts, you can have unilluminated signs that are permitted in single family, two family, and multifamily housing districts, provided they are placed no earlier than the start of construction and removed within 30 days of issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Such signs shall be limited to one sign per dwelling, not to exceed 6 square feet per contractor or subcontractor. And then number two says all other zoning districts, unilluminated signs are permitted, provided they are placed no earlier than the start of construction and removed whether a CO is issued. Whenever a CO is issued, such signs shall be limited to one sign per job site, not to exceed 16 square feet per contractor and 6 square feet per subcontractor. And three says a temporary construction fence around an active construction site may be decorated with colors, graphics, symbols, writing, or other visual presentations. A temporary construction fence is permitted only if it is placed no earlier than the start of construction and removed whenever a CO is issued. So section 2185, this is a new section as well, and these are signs that does not require a permit. So one says, any sign including inside a building, provided that such signs otherwise comply with the requirements of this chapter. Number two would be lights and decorations. Those will not require a permit. And the last is political signs. A sign identifying or urging voter support for a particular election issue, political party, or candidate for public office will not require a permit. Furthermore, a political sign cannot exceed 32 square feet in area and 8 feet in height. The sign must be removed the day after election. So those conclude the changes that we are making in the sign ordinance. So as I stated, we're presenting this to you tonight, but there, as I was reading, I did see some items that need to be cleaned up a little bit. Those will be cleaned up prior to going before the Planning Commission on February 7th. Are there any questions or comments? So with the exception of 7173 Covington Highway, as I explained to you earlier, that will travel to City Council on January 23rd. Let me make sure. January 23rd, that will travel to that. I think it's the 23rd. I think it is the 23rd. Sorry, I don't have my calendar in front of me. So, and that is being taken to City Council, as I mentioned before. We're going to ask for deferral back to Planning Commission. Again, we don't know which way City Council is going to vote. They do not have to accept staff's recommendation. So for now, we have not sent a legal ad out to the newspaper to advertise that case to go back to Planning Commission for now. But the other T-mods will go before the Planning Commission on February 7th. There's an upcoming City Council work session on the 13th of February. Then you have the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then the T-mods will travel to the City Council meeting on March 27th. Any questions? So if there are no other questions, we will conclude for tonight. We went a little over, but not too bad. But I thank you for joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you at the January 23rd City Council meeting and then at the February 7th Planning Commission meeting. Okay,